Everybody, welcome back to Final Resonance TV and episode number 56 of Van Halen Stories. Today I have a guest I've been talking to for a number of years about being on and talking about the early days of Van Halen. James Steinwedell is here, all the way from Los Angeles, California. James grew up in LaCanada, which is kind of, that's north of kind of Pasadena, right?
Yeah. It's northwest of Pasadena. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just about 6 miles. Yeah.
So you grew up as a guitar player in the scene, and kind of give us a little background about, you're growing up and how you got into music, and then kind of how you ended up in this group of people that, the whole scene with Van Halen, Pasadena, LaCanada, all the different venues, the Civic, all of that stuff. Kind of give us a little background first.
Sure. I grew up in a family that wasn't musical.
Okay.
And I remember going to this at the LaCanada YMCA, going to some dance in 5th grade it was. And I'm going there alone, and I see this band. They were called Black Creek, with the guitar player Pete McKibben, who's still fabulous, a great player.
Wow.
And I remember just watching, standing in front of him, and just this light bulb went on. And I stood there the entire night. I didn't dance, didn't meet any girls. I just watched the guitar player.
Right.
And I went home that night, and I told my dad I wanted to play guitar now. And he said, "What?" And I said, yeah, I want to play guitar. He goes, "Well, okay, I think we have an old thing kicking around here somewhere." And so I started to play,
right.
Not knowing anything, what to do. But my neighbor down the street was Carl Verheyen, who's one of the finest players. It was always been. And so he taught me my first, Mr. Tambourine Man song, and who's another, just a great human being. And still, I'll see him out at the Baked Potato, and he's just the same good human he always was. And just, you can't even imagine what he's doing. Yeah.
Right.
So I start, playing, and I was also a football player. That was my real love, other than love. And then I got injured. Long story short, I couldn't play football anymore, but I was kind of looked like a jock.
Okay.
So I'd been at some party or one of those dances at St. Francis, and I saw Van Halen play, and it was like, it was indescribable, because Ed would play, and his had straight long hair, and the microphone went into, the hair. And he sang every song and played note for note, all the cream, everything perfectly. And the phrasing and everything I'd never heard anything like it. Never made a mistake. But when he went to his solos, you're a guitar player, obviously. Uh-huh. The phrasing in the beats is the hard thing to get right. And he just couldn't help but do it every single time,
Right.
So when he broke away from the note for note, he just went into, the stratosphere as far as I was concerned. I remember running home. I lived across, there's a walk bridge over the freeway from St. Francis into where I lived in the circle, Meadow Grove Circle in LaCanada.
Okay.
I remember watching him play Superstition, and I remember memorizing it, and I really ran home. It's probably half a mile, grabbed my guitar under the bed and worked it out. Like, how the hell did he do that with that heavy, sound? So I started following him. And not too long later, there was a backyard party in my block, like 8 houses down from where I lived. And I went there, obviously, and it was Van Halen. So they're playing their first song, and Ed's Marshall blew up. The first song. And so he's over there going, fuck, Riz a Rat. Oh, man. So I go up to him, and now I look more like a jock. Okay.
Right.
Than a guitar player. He's 5'4", and I'm 6'2", 230 pounds. Right.
Okay.
So I go, "Hey, what's going on?" He goes, "Oh, my fucking amp. It just blew up. We're not going to get paid, and whatever." And I said, I have a 100-watt Marshall down the street. It's like 6 houses. And he looks at me and goes, "Fuck you." Like you're joking with me. Because not many people had Marshalls. Back then, there were 3 or 4 of us who had them. Everyone else had Fenders or, whatever else. But they were pretty rare. So I said, "No, let's go down there now. I have it." He goes, "Are you serious?" "Yeah." Jump in the car, his old white Peugeot, go down there, pick it up, come back. and he finishes the gig, and he's like really relieved. And he was such a nice guy. And he said, "Oh, by the way, if you ever sell this amp, you got to sell it to me, because this is one of those special Marshalls." And I said, "I'm never selling it." So, yeah.
Like, have you ever sold it? You haven't sold
I
it.
got stolen years ago with my other 200-watt Marshall stack, major
Man.
blonde. That's a long story, but
Bummer.
but after that, when he started playing bigger and bigger places, he'd call me up and say, "Hey, can I borrow your stack?" And I said, "Heck yeah." And so, that meant that we could go in early, and then they set up and watch the whole concert, whether it was, bigger and bigger parties, and then the Pasadena Civic and stuff. It was really fun.
Right. That's cool. So this borrowing gear thing. Now, this is something I've heard through a lot of different people.
Yeah, he did it. He borrowed like 3 or 4 stacks, and he only played through one head though.
Okay. So which head was it? Because there's always,
My head.
Okay. So yours wasn't a white head, was it?
No, it was a 100-watt Marshall.
Just
It had a hole cut in the side for a fan, but I ditched the fan. It was just, I bought it from some bizarre band up in the Hollywood Hills that, for $400 the whole stack. It was like,
oh wow, right.
Yeah, it was weird.
That's insane. So they would they borrow all that gear just like it guys obviously just look cool to have a show.
Oh yeah. And it was obviously we wanted to see it because nobody had that many amps. So you wanted to see Ed playing in front of the stack of amps,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was like for the guitar players and people, it was sort of like just an anomaly to see that kind of thing at that point.
Well, and you're getting near Ed, and you get to talk to Ed, right?
Right.
Again, he was a shy guy, but very kind.
So what year about is this when you first see them? Is what year is that? Roughly. You said high school, right?
It was early high school for me, and again, I'm younger than Ed.
Okay.
I graduated high school in '75, and I think he would graduate in '73.
Sounds right.
Something like that. But it was my freshman year or sophomore year that I started seeing them.
Okay.
And once you saw them, whenever you heard that they're going to play, and you're a guitar player, you're going to go to the thing,
Right. Which configuration was this? Mark Stone or
That was the first time I saw him with Mark Stone. I saw him once or twice at a party in that St. Francis, and then after that, it was with Roth and Michael Anthony. Michael Anthony is like the nicest human in the world, too. By the way,
right? I know.
Just a genuine,
guy.
Yeah, and wicked player.
Yeah, and a lot of people know his brothers were playing in bands too back in the time at that time. So there's a lot of that, family thing with him. And what was it? What was the town he was in?
He came from Chicago.
And he lived in what area though out there? Arcadia.
Arcadia.
Sorry, I went blank on that.
Yeah, Arcadia is next to Pasadena.
Yeah, I come out there every year to do this kind of a sites visit where I go around to all the different locations, and one of the places that I told you about earlier was C&H Surplus that everybody talked about. I still haven't seen the location. Apparently the sign has been refurbished and is there again.
The outside looks the same, but I don't know if there's anything on the inside, but
right now it was like a surplus like Army Navy or
no, it was they had Army Navy things like cases for obviously, jet thing, components but the electronics part was just endless. It was like, I didn't even know what half the things were. It was so cool, but we would go, picking around trying to find things that we might be able to use or make into, useful for guitar pedals or like the Variac boxes we built. So we had to build the box, and then you bought the Variac guts, and then you put it inside and wired it up so you could put the plug in. And
okay, that's cool. Yeah, because I was wondering about Dow Radio because he mentioned that is where he got the Variac. That's Sammy's camera. Now I've been by there. I didn't even know it. The first time I went in, I bought some batteries, and a few days later when I was in town, I looked it up, the address, and I drove back to it, and it was Sammy's camera. I was like, oh, this is where it was. And
yeah.
it
was there forever.
Yeah, so it's always been. So I don't know if that, there's always talk about where you got the bomb casing and some of the hardware and things. Do you think some of that came from C&H?
I don't know where he got the bomb thing. I can't imagine it. I mean, it might have been at CNH because it was just like this dark, long factory place with tables with all this shit laid out and cabinets. I
Wow.
mean, we spent hours just walking around making fun of this guy. But no, he, I mean, I remember, but when I graduated, I was going to go to school in the East Coast.
Okay.
So I told you this. I went to this biker bar in Van Nuys with one of my roadies in the band, who was like this massive dude, and we were the smallest people in the bar.
Wow.
Okay, I mean, and their little backstage green room was on the side of this bar with one of shower curtain on tracks thing that had a magnetic deal. And so, I mean, it was just funny, but I was going to go see him the last time before I went east. And I said, and they played, and the sound was just the total Brown sound at the perfect volume.
Wow.
And I took Ed aside, for the 100th time, I said, "No, tell me how you got that sound." And so he kind of bullshitted me. He said, "It's the pickups." I said, "Fuck you, Ed. It's not the pickups. I have those same DeMars." He goes, "Come on." And he goes, "They're old tubes." And I go, "No." So I kind of grabbed him, and he kind of, said, "Ed, just tell me, would you?" He goes, "Okay, but you can't tell anyone." Okay, who am I going to tell? I'm going to be in the East Coast. So he goes over this little bag in the side of the Marshall, and it wasn't the bomb yet, And he said, "That's the All-Might Variac." And I said, "What does it do?" And he goes, you turn down the voltage from the wall, and then you just crank the Marshall on 10, take it down to 90 volts, and that's the sound." And I went, "Oh."
Right.
And it was just like, I mean, I didn't buy one for some time, even though I went back east and played in bands and stuff. But I finally got one, and then I just went, "Oh, I should have bought this right away."
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
I have like 6 of them, and I use them on every amp I have, even these small 14-watt amps that I have. It just makes the power amps, the power tubes distort, not the preamp tubes, and that's where that really beautiful sound comes from.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot of talk about when he was in the studio. There's that Doug Messenger who was in the studio with him when they were doing Fair Warning, and he said that Ed wanted to show him how touch sensitive it was and how low the volume was, which plays into the Variac, right?
Yeah, and the Variac, even when you backed it off on your volume control, it cleaned up too.
Okay.
So it wasn't the kind of it wasn't like one of those speaker limiters, that goes between the head and the speaker, and then you dial it back, even though some of those are better now.
Right, the attenuators, yeah.
Yeah. But this really opened up a whole new spectrum of how to play and what kind of amps you could use and at what settings, because at different voltage, the thing, I didn't have a preamp. I didn't have a master volume, so you didn't need one. The Variac was your master volume, and if you wanted just a little higher, you just tweaked it up a couple volts, and then there's a delay because the tubes have to heat up, and then it gets louder. But it was just the perfect thing. So
right, because everybody said that it was, I guess the original reason was that it was just too loud everywhere he played, and everybody
to get the sound you wanted, it had to be too loud.
Right.
Even if we put pillows over it, we tried to turn the speaker upside down,
right,
and you just couldn't quite get it.
Yeah, everybody talks about the Variac in the early days. Had Carl on here and Carl Jaw and Gary Putman, and both of them were big fans. After they figured that out, that was like the thing around town.
It was.
That is.
But people didn't talk about it. People didn't, like. When I met Chris Holmes, he's a couple years younger than me.
Yeah.
He would say, "Can you show me some licks?" No one will show me their licks. And because people were, and Roth would tell Ed, when you do your solos, when he's starting to get into the tapping, turn away from the audience because people rip you off. And I guess he started to do that at Gazzarri's or whatever. But after a while, I mean, that's why they came, they came to watch the fingers go,
Right. Oh yeah,
but,
sure.
but Chris, I didn't care. I showed him stuff, and then we started, doing gear and making stuff. And Chris was always this, truth teller guy. No matter what he would do and stuff, he would always tell you straight what something was, and that that's a good thing in him.
Yeah, yeah. The whole story of him and Terry Kilgore, and
Yeah,
Kilgore,
he's amazing.
taking a lesson from Harvey Mandel, and that whole lore. I don't think it's. I think it's but Ed never really pointed out Mandel. It was weird. Like
He told me.
he told you
Me.
that he
Yeah,
did. What
told
did
me
he
he
say?
saw this guy Mandel play and did some tapping. It wasn't quite the same as Ed's tapping,
Right, right.
but he said there was a guy I never heard of. I mean, I know who he is now, obviously historically, but I didn't know who that was, and he lived up in the mountains or whatever.
Yeah.
And he said this guy I saw up there. He started doing that, and I took it another 5 levels.
So he did tell you that he saw that because George Lynch said he went with him to see Canned Heat, and they watched him tap at that gig, and they were like looking at each other. And I don't know if that's the first time that Ed kind of that light bulb went off or what, but yeah, it's interesting that he told you. Now he told Neil Sean. He told Neil Sean because it's documented in an interview back in the '80s, though, that not many people know about. But he told Neil that, and then I had Matt Blackett from Guitar Player Magazine on here, and Matt ran into Neil at a gig. It was Jeff Beck, I think, and Neil said, "Let me introduce you to the guy that Eddie got tapping from," and it was Harvey Mandel. So
Interesting story about Neil Sean.
yeah.
My family, we used to have this Christmas party that
Mhm.
from 12 to 2 every Christmas. People come over and you have drinks. My family comes down from the Steinwedell side, and so Ed would come over, um, you know, probably to see my little sister who he kind of had a crush on, but all of us musicians would be there, and so we'd just take him up to in my bedroom and we'd just pepper him with questions about the tour because they just finished their first tour.
Okay, 78, yeah.
And so we're asking him all this stuff, and he was telling us about the Dallas gig with Journey.
Yeah.
And he said they accidentally sent all of our amps to Japan, so we didn't have any amps. And so I didn't know what to do. So I went up to Neil Sean and I said, Mr. Sean, I'm the opening act, and they sent all our amps to Japan. And do you think I could just use one Marshall head, one Marshall bottom to open up? And he said, he looked at me and said, "Fuck you," and walked off. Now the stories you hear now when Neil's, made those much safer, because what he said is the Journey's roadies went back to Neil after hearing the opening band, and he said that they said to Neil, "You got to hear this guy. You have no idea the energy that's going on out there."
Right.
So, but it was funny that.
Oh yeah. There was definitely that. There's a whole thing. There's a lot of stories that Noel Monk told in his book about that tour, and the rivalry and the kind of back and forth between Steve Perry and them, and some of the things that happened on the road with Van Halen. The young bucks going a little wild. And they're it was pretty cool stories. And I know there was that thing with Neil, but apparently Neil loves Ed, but.
Oh yeah, no, and I don't. I'm not judging Neil.
Yeah,
I just think it's funny because later that year, Guitar Player Magazine best new rock guitarist.
Right.
Then the next 5 years, best rock guitarist.
Yeah.
Like, I maybe should have lent him an amp, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe he thought it was some crazy band.
Well, yeah, how that is, but yeah, it's such a cool thing the early years that you were around, and to see, they did a gig in, I think it was 76 bicentennial at the City Hall. Were you at that?
No.
Okay. Because that was one of the ones where apparently just something went, they had like almost a riot afterwards for, I think, I don't know what the fireworks or something. Something happened, but I can't remember the details. But yeah, there was a lot of hometown gigs around that area that there are just so many storied stories of all
Yeah.
this stuff.
They'd
So
play anywhere. They
yeah.
played everywhere and anywhere. You know, it was $50 in the early days and a case of beer. That was the deal. You know, and then they got better and better and started doing their own shows. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, they did.
We're everywhere.
Yeah, there was a couple people who had hired them on here for things and some interesting stories like these dances and things. I think it was Supper's Ready is the band that they opened for or something like that for one of the gigs. Of course, there's the famous Randy Rhoads Quiet Riot gig that happened in Glendale. Were you there for that?
No, I was back east then. That bicentennial ones, I was back east going to school.
Okay, so it was a little after that. Gotcha.
And interestingly, when I was back east and playing in bands at the school, everyone was from different states, and everyone had their like hometown, guitar player hero.
Yeah.
So, and I said, well, yeah, we got this guy in my little town, and you're going to hear him one day because he's like off the charts good. And everyone was thinking, oh yeah, we have one of those in our town. And then the album comes out like a year later, and they all call me up and go, now, is this the dude? Unbelievable. You know, it was really hilarious.
That's got to be so cool for you to kind of relive that experience from all that, knowing that ahead, because we didn't have any kind of mass media there really. So there wasn't any way to really know this.
No. And it's a funny story if you don't mind, I'll tell the story. There's
Sure.
a band at the school I went to. There was a band already formed, and I was taking a music theory course. I didn't know anything about music theory. I taught myself how to play really after Carl showed me a few songs, and so I'm looking for this band. I hear there's two drummers. The guitar player is supposed to be like Jeff Beck and incredible. And so I went up to the music teacher in the class and said, where's this band that rehearses around here? And he goes, well, the bass player's in your music class. He's right there in the back, looking like a stoner. And back then, if you were a musician, everyone looked like a musician. If you were a preppy, you looked like a preppy. If you were a jock, you looked like a jock. But I didn't kind of fit any of those. So I went up to the kid, Robert Burns, great guy actually, and I said, hey, are you in the band? He goes, oh yeah, I'm in the band. I said, hey, can I jam with you guys sometimes? And he looks at me and goes, fuck you. And so I go, what? Because I didn't look like a musician.
Right.
So I kept bugging him later, saying, come on, let me. And he goes, okay, what kind of equipment do you have? And I said, well, I have 2 Les Pauls and 2 Marshall stacks. And that'd be like saying I had 5 Ferraris, right, nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
He just goes, oh, right, fuck you. And so long story short, time goes by. My roommate was on the hockey team, and I had broken my last strings. And we're in this town in the middle of nowhere in Massachusetts. That's where we lived at the school. And so I said, I don't know where to get guitar strings. And he goes, well, the guy, the goalie on a hockey team is a guitar player. Let's go over there and, after we weight lift and go and see if he knows where to buy strings or he has something extra. So I said, okay. So we go over there after weightlifting. And this guy, my roommate, is a hockey player. He's like 6'5", he's massive. So we come in knock on the door, and the door opens and the whole band is in there. And they're having a band meeting, right? 2 drummers, the guitar players, the singer, the bass player. And the bass player guy who had given me shit in my music class, he goes, oh, guys, this is the guy I was telling you about. Come in. He goes, oh, here, Steve, give me your guitar. Play us something. And so, I mean, I knew the solos from, a bunch of Deep Purple solos, like Highway Star.
Yeah.
And just, it wasn't even plugged in. So I just played as fast, as sharp as I could do it. And it was like the room was silent. So I give the guitar back to the guy, and they go, can you join the band? It was like out of a movie.
Right.
Yeah. Because again, coming from our area, a rising tide lifts all boats, So the quality of, I don't know if you knew guitar player Jeff Taylor or Chris Farmer.
Farmer sounds familiar.
Chris Farmer was in Desire.
Okay.
And the Stormer singers that changed. Do you
Okay.
remember that?
Yeah, I
Randy,
know about Jimmy Bates, of course, through all of the things that I've heard because everybody talks about Jimmy
he
Bates.
was he was unbelievable. To me, he was second to Ed of
Yeah,
all of them, over Randy.
right. Yeah, I've heard some recordings, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it was. He was just, and his sound was perfect. Everything was perfect. Now, Randy Jones was the singer there, and Desire with Chris Farmer, Bill Carruthers on bass, and David Kyle Craig on drums. Killer band. They had Tom Hardy, and at some point, Tom left to join Stormer, and Randy left to join Desire.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and that was crazy. But they were all excellent players. All the people that played.
Yeah, I've heard about all the bands. Like Greg Leon, who I told you I'd had on. You know,
His band was great.
all those bands, in the LA scene. There's a great documentary on it. It's kind of a low budget one, but it's about the '70s rock scene in LA. It's just prior to Van Halen, or right up to the point where Van Halen hits, and it has all of those bands like Stormer, was a la carte. All those bands are in
Yeah,
this, and all the members are in it. Of course, Carlos Cavazo and Snow.
yeah, sure.
All these people. This pre-story that happened in your area before this whole thing blew up with Van Halen in '78, and then everything that came after that. I mean, since you saw that beginning, the whole transition of that from some '78 to '81, and how that influenced all the other bands like Quiet Riot. How they eventually got
Oh yeah.
signed and became huge. I mean, I don't know if Van Halen didn't hit that any of those things would have happened.
Oh, I agree. I agree that a lot of, I don't think if Van Halen didn't hit, the big hair bands that followed, even before the next iteration of weird music, whatever that was, new wave or punk or whatever
Sure.
that hated. But it extended that heavy melodic rock and the frontman thing many years, I think.
Yeah, right.
Then they kept making killer albums. I mean, they just kept touring.
Yeah, right. So did you ever go to the house at Los Lunas?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, what was it like?
You call up his mom, and she was Indonesian,
Right.
and you'd leave a message, and Eddie not home, and she was so cute. She ran the place, though. She ran the household, and so I remember one time going over there, and a couple of times we were going to go out to a party, and Alex was there, and there was a couple of us, and Ed was sitting playing just his guitar unplugged, had his ashtray and a bunch of empty beer cans, and said, "Come on, let's go to this party," wherever it was. And so no, I have to figure out some things on the guitar. I'm just going to sit here. So we come back like 4 hours later.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't moved. The ashtray's now this high, and there's that many more beer cans, and he's still on the guitar, just figuring stuff out.
Yeah.
And playing.
Yeah, so he was, everybody says that, and we've always heard he never had a guitar not in his hand. So these stories of him and his brother going out and him just hanging were all true.
As far as I remember, yeah, but then there were times when you were there and there were other guitar players there, and he'd go, "Jim, do you want to play?" "Oh no, Ed, no, you just keep playing. I'm not going to play in front of him, and
Right.
them, because it's like,
Right.
yeah.
So the house, I've had a lot of I've had people that have gone in over the years. One guy that I've been talking to, his his step brother actually lived in it right after the Van Halens moved up to Altadena when they moved their parents. Okay. So they
Right in
moved
my house, yeah.
to Calvert Street.
Yeah.
And so they had it as a rental, which I found out, over time through different sources, but it ended up being a rental. And but a lot of people talked about the house being pretty tight, pretty small. But was the room that Ed was in? Was that in addition to the house if you're looking at the back, the left side of the house?
I don't remember ever really going into Ed's room.
Okay.
I remember just being in the living room, and just going over there for that, to go out someplace or stop by and do something like that. I don't remember the layout of the house, but I remember someone had turned it into a museum, the Van Halen Museum for a while. Do you remember that?
I don't
Somebody
remember
bought
that.
it.
Really? How
I
long
have,
ago was that?
oh, a long time ago. I have a business card. I don't know how I got it, but someone had bought that house and sort of made it like a Van Halen museum for a while, and then they sold it or something. But
Yeah. It's weird because it's been, sitting there, and as far as I know, it's still a rental. Some people said it's sold, but I haven't seen that, anywhere. And so, yeah, it's interesting that they haven't done anything with it. It's, now it's $1 million property out, and it's a tiny little home, right? It's amazing. It's a beautiful neighborhood.
I live like a mile and a half from there.
Do you now?
Yeah. Oh, well, now we're going to move because our house got trashed from the
Oh man,
fires.
sorry about that.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Didn't get burned, but it got so filled with the toxic particulates, everything, and it was just ruined.
Right. Yeah. Altadena. Right. So you got
Yeah.
that whole area. I was there right after that happened. And it was so crazy to look. We went up to that where the practice home was in Altadena. That I forgot what's her name. Wiley. Elizabeth Wiley, I believe it was, that had them paint their house, and they would practice on that street. And we went on that street, and that house had been just renovated and survived. But I swear, like right across the street, gone.
Yeah.
It was so wild how the fire and stuff just fell out of the sky and hit certain things and took them out and left other stuff totally.
Yeah. There were 100-mile-an-hour winds, and I live Washington Boulevard. I live 7 houses down from Washington,
Uh-huh.
block west of Hill.
Yeah.
And so the speed of the winds just made the fire angry and hungry.
Right.
Just do anything it wanted, It was
Yeah, I know.
horrible.
Terry Kilgore lost his home in that, and all his stuff. And I was
Yeah.
with
Thor amplifiers too.
yeah, it was terrible, and I was with him right after this, like literally the week that it happened. And it was just horrible, man, to hear of what all he lost and all those memories and everything. And,
Yeah.
I think, you have that family home, and then it's like, it's paid for, and then now what?
Yeah. And everything that you had that had any meaning or history is gone.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Joey Hunting and his brother, you lost their family home, as well. And it's just tragic for all these people that I knew within this community. It's so awful. And
It was a great little town, Altadena. It was
yeah,
quick, fun, and
it's,
yeah.
I've been out there for about 4 years, and I would take 3 or 4 days after NAM and just basically get an Airbnb locally and, drive the streets, go to all the locations, and I get to know the town, like Sierra Madre, for
Sierra
instance.
Madre is a great town.
Right. I mean, and it's such a beautiful little area up there. And, as I've got like Dr. Music and that, that store that was up there at the time, and the Playhouse where they had a battle of the bands with Uncle Sam, which is this Chris Holmes story, right? It's an interesting story and a beautiful town, and lots of the areas are so cool,
Yeah.
and they're close to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a nice place to grow up. And, pretty good people around. There were certain areas you didn't go at night and too late but you kind of knew where they were.
Right. So the area that Los Lunas is in, has it always been a decent area?
Los Lunas?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always been a decent area.
Okay.
If you go west of Lake, it can be, over the years, it could be kind of sketchy a little bit, depends. There's west of Lake up and towards northwest Pasadena, there's parts of it that are not so safe, a lot of burglary and stuff like that. But, pretty much east of Lake all the way up, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been cool to go like to the Civic too. They apparently renovated that Civic complex at one point.
They did.
And from what I understand, the area that they played in inside the building was down at what they would call the pit. Now you've been in there apparently, right?
Yeah. Used to drive in, used to go, from the front, you go, Green Street's a one-way street, right?
Yeah.
And from the north side is where the front is. But
Right.
you used to drive around the side and come down the back and drive down into with your truck to unload. the amps and whatever, and into that huge room for the setup, and it was perfect for that.
So it was more like a convention hall.
It was a convention hall.
Okay.
Yeah, it was big, and it wasn't cut up into little rooms. It didn't have, those movable walls for conferences or anything like that. But it was a perfect thing for what they did. And they had a great PA, they had a great stage thing, and it just worked.
So when they did that, now I've heard different things about the shows. They would have multiple bands the night that Van Halen would play, and they would set up different spots. Is that how it worked?
I don't remember.
Or do you just remember it being one stage?
I remember only one stage. And again, I only went a couple times before I went east for many years. And then, so I don't know what they did after that. Maybe they just kept developing it and adding more and more as people believed in them, started, helping them promote it.
Right.
But yeah, when I would go, and I wouldn't go necessarily for the first bands anyways. I just want to get there, the backstage, the thing to go see Van Halen.
Right. They said that room was kind of like a pretty ambient room.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. It could echo.
And it was kind of subterranean, right?
It was. The most of it was under the street level. You couldn't go in the street level and look into and see the concert really from any good view. You'd have to come in and pay and come in the regular way.
Because I've seen a stairwell that goes down into what Ed would call the pit.
That's right. You had to take the stairs down, a couple long ways down, and then you got into the thing. It was like Perkins Palace. Did you ever go there?
I've heard about it, but no, I haven't been there.
Yeah, Perkins. It was called the Raymond Theater.
Okay.
And it was on Raymond, obviously, and it was just a old, beautiful theater that had gone to hell. And the guy who ran Emily's restaurant, Perkins Restaurant, Mark Perkins, bought the thing, and he had my oldest friend Mark Garrigus, the big lawyer guy now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he would be the booking guy,
right?
And so he would book them, and they didn't know anything about sound, so they had me come in and say, how are we going to do sound here and stuff? So I would get my buddy down at the original Guitar Center, Dave DiMartino, who was just a great guy. And he was honest. And so they came up and would bid on building out this huge JBL system and bringing in power and all that stuff. But they decided, just to rent it every time and generators outside. But that was a great place. I mean, I did monitors for Oingo Boingo and Smokey Robinson, and it was a really nice venue. It wasn't too big, and the sound was killer.
So you may or may not have gone to the Rose Palace. Was that a little bit before your time?
I don't remember the Rose Palace. Where was that?
That's where they do the floats. It's still over there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was at one time a rock venue, but that was right around the late '60s. That would have been probably before you were doing concert age, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they had like Zeppelin play there, and I think Hendrix, and that's supposedly where the Marshall came from. It was like supposed to be the house amp at the Rose Palace. Then it ended up at Berry and Grassmute.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And that's how Ed came in, and they were like, and he was like enamored with it. It was a Marshall, and apparently moved pianos for a long time to get it, and all that stuff. And
yeah,
that's crazy. So the other music store is Sound Chamber. Did you go there?
No, I don't remember Sound Chamber. We went to Grayson's, Toontown, Montrose, and basically Guitar Center and that Dr. Music, I think it was called.
Dr. Music, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And was that in Alhambra?
I'm not sure because I think it moved around like a lot of things did, in that area. There were the record store, the Pooh-Bahs had moved like 3 times, over the years, from downtown to down the street down there, a little bit further down. And then now it's down there by Guitar Center. It's still around, but but I'd find these things out from people that were local. They would tell me like this used to be over here, but now it's over there, and this, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't know exactly on that one where that was located, but
yeah, I didn't know that Rose Palace thing. That's good to know.
Yeah, it was late '60s. I guess they used it for a concert venue for a while. I don't know how long, but it's part of the lore of the amp, and people kind of go back and forth on really whether that was fact or not, but did you think that, because you just said it a minute ago about Ed and the amplifier. That did you think that like his brother and Roth kind of positioned him to like say, don't give all your secrets away, like even the amp, but also like other things that he kind of became like diversionary with his facts.
Yeah. But again, like I said, it was common that people didn't, if you said, "Hey, show me how you play that lick," they go, "Fuck no, I'm not going to show you."
Really?
I mean, it wasn't unusual.
Okay.
So if you had something special going on, you might try to not make it public.
Right. Well, yeah, it's like a trade secret thing. You're trying to, you're trying to sell that and you don't want everybody to have that. There's that story, there's a famous story of Angel almost recording "You Really Got Me" because Ed was talking and he's told that story. Like I talked about it. I let him listen to it. They had their record. I listened to their record. And the next thing I know, I'm in trouble.
Okay.
Because he was talking, because he seemed like, I met Ed, but that was in 2015. He just seemed like one of my friends toured with him and he said, he's just a regular guy like you and me, man. He really is just down to earth. I don't know if that's how you.
No, he was that way. He was, again, much shyer before he was really, really famous. But he was just always just a good guy, good person. And there were plenty of not good people in that realm. Guitar players were just assholes. Like I remember going to see Stormer, Jimmy Bates at it was Starwood. And we, sometimes you could linger after they closed it down. Mm-hmm. And they wouldn't kick you all out at 2 or 1 o'clock, whatever it was. And, we were all fucked up anyways then. And I remember this one guy, friend of Holmes, who was a great guitar player. I can't remember his name right now, but he'd be going, "God, I'm better than Ed. I should be fucking up there like this." And, and Chris and I are just going, "Dude, no, you're not. No, don't you know where you are in the pecking order?" It's like, and Chris was always good about that. He never claimed to be what he wasn't.
Right.
He was always straight up, when they were recording one of the Wasp albums, I was down there in the studio and he would say, "Remember, Jim, we were doing musical entertainment, with the raw meat and throwing, beating the girl with the, Sure. And he was just straight, which I loved.
Yeah. It's just his connection to the Shark guitar, the whole thing where his guitar ends up being the guitar they use for Women and Children First. And I've actually played that guitar and had the one guitar in your picture, right? Picture of you and Chris. That guitar it's interesting because it was supposed to be the sister of the Shark, and Ed liked it. As a guitar player, do you think he enjoyed that guitar because of the scale length, or what was it that you think he really liked? Was it the pickups? I mean,
obviously Ed was the sound guy, but the neck was those were thinner.
Yes,
and he didn't have big hands, but they're perfect for the way I like to play. Like I have a Gibson Les Paul Custom from the 68, and it has the perfect kind of thing, the action, the kind of neck, the thickness and the width. So he liked things that were thin like that to play. Like he liked it. He had a 335 that he could play. I mean, I almost would say he played better on that thing, Ed, than he did on Frankenstein, but he didn't, it was too bulky, too big on him, and feedback, because it had the F holes. So he started tinkering like he always did. Probably like the 339, the smaller body.
Oh, yeah.
And that they made the F holes, those little inserts for the F holes so they wouldn't feedback, would cover them up.
That's cool.
I just remembered another story after that first tour when we had him. It was funny. We were asking him every kind of detail about touring and stuff. And he goes, "Yeah, what we had to do before we went out on tour, they rented this huge sound stage down in wherever it was, Hollywood, where they had the 50-foot stage and all full lights and sound and everyone. And they played 8 hours a day for 2 weeks before the tour. I mean, obviously Roth didn't sing, or his voice would be shredded, right? And he said, I was playing, like I always do. And Ted Templeman came up to me and said, Ed, this is a big stage. You have to move around. With this kind of music, you got to move. He goes, I don't move. I'm playing. I'm used to singing and playing. And he goes, I'm going to get you to move. And Ed goes, okay. So Templeman, this is Ed telling me. Templeman gets one of those rolling chairs, and he gets a case of drumsticks. So he's rolling in front of Ed, throwing sticks at him while they're doing the set 8 hours. Like he's just throwing sticks in. So Ed's got to be like dodging and staying playing. And if you look at the earliest videos, some of the way Ed's moves, you could almost imagine that that's what he started with. But I thought that was hilarious. Templeman going, I'll get you to move. And then they couldn't stop him moving after he got going. He's jumping off the speakers. He broke his hip on that thing. I mean,
wow, that's a great story. Yeah,
it was funny.
So that he told you that.
Yeah, he told all of us in my room at that house. We asked him about merchandise, how much they made, what all this, we had, because we're all want to be, get the record contract thing,
Right, sure.
And they got signed. I think we were at the Queen concert, and we used to go as a band, or at least a couple of our band, to the concert, and just, Freddie Mercury. Okay.
Yeah.
In the story. I mean, you just couldn't take your eyes off the dude the whole time. So we're walking around that middle circle of the forum, and we bump into Ed, and I think it was Dave and Alex. And we go, hey, what are you guys doing? He goes, oh, we just got signed. And we said, yeah, you just got signed. Fuck you. He said, no, we did. And Ed goes, my hand, it'll never be the same. I signed so many things. I can't even move it, And we went, what did you do? He goes, it's a 5-year, 8-album contract with Warner Brothers. And we went, finally they did it. Someone got him, because everyone knew of him and everyone said no to him, and then there was that, gig at Starwood, I think, where head of Warner Brothers went down there and said, wow, okay.
Templeman went in there, and they took Mo Austin in, I believe. And
Mo Austin, that's it was. Yeah, Templeman and Mo Austin.
And Mo Austin apparently was the person who signed the Kinks. So when he heard him play You Really Got Me, he was like, I like that song. That's a great story.
I tell you, I mean, you've seen him, but in those days, the energy that they had when they played a venue like the Starwood or the Rainbow or something like that, it was sort of like so much greater than the sum of the parts of every player. I mean, it was just, you just couldn't not like it.
Right.
I mean, it was that intense, and Roth was a lot like Jim Dandy, from Black Oak, Arkansas, but he owned the room. I mean, he ran that room. And I don't know if I told you, but we used to give him shit all the time when we were at a bar, getting wasted or something. He'd be going, yeah, man, you guys are sending out demo tapes, and we're not going to do that. We're going to have the fans call and demand that Van Halen get signed. And we just go, fuck you, Ed. Fuck you, Dave. You got Ed and Alex, and they're the best, but let's go easy on we're going to make the radio fans fucking call in. But Roth was right. Kept him on the straight ahead rock and roll thing, and didn't, kept it from going in the progressive area, which a lot of us were kind of going in that direction. Yes, King Crimson, that kind of thing. But they stayed straight ahead, and that's what did it. So
yeah, I heard that Ed listened to Yes. He actually had it in his room, and people were talking about Steve Howe, which I was kind of shocked, but when I heard that, but yeah, I knew they kind of leaned that way, and Roth was kind of steering
Roth said no way.
Yeah, but the cool thing about Roth and the whole mix is how that mix of what Roth was into and what they were into kind of made what it is. It's such a cool mix of things, and yet has a little bit of this kind of background vocal thing that Michael Anthony and him were such a part of, that made it this pop thing that women loved. It wasn't like Rush.
Yeah, exactly. And the guys loved it for a lot of reasons, but the women really liked it, which is unusual.
Yeah, for hard rock, I'm thinking back to that period, 77, so right around that period. I mean, I'm thinking of Deep Purple or something at that period. How many women were following Deep Purple? I don't know because I'm too younger than that era. But I just think
There
Van
was a
Halen
lot of them.
was it?
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean,
Oh, Ian Gillan and yeah, I mean,
Coverdale.
Ian Gillan was a great, unbelievable frontman, and Coverdale. So they were the long, beautiful, blonde-haired, heavy rocks. So there was always a long line at the
I
hotel.
bet. What's funny is I did see Ian Gillan when he came through with Judas Priest and Steve Morris about 4 years ago. I went down and they Judas Priest opened the show and Deep Purple closed. And I had never seen, any of Deep Purple before live, and Morris was the guitar player.
Morris is fabulous.
Yeah, and to see most like three of the members,
Yeah,
I was just like, this is really cool for me to see this because this is such a different era for me, and to see it live was really cool. And Ian Gillan, man, it was it was amazing.
unbelievable. He still can do it.
Right, right, right. It's crazy. So let me ask you about this White Marshall thing. When
Yeah,
I see these pictures all the time, there's a picture of Chris standing
yeah. I took that picture.
with the destroyer.
Yeah.
Okay, that's your picture.
No, with the white Marshall in the stack of Marshall with Ed. I mean, with Chris's head on the side.
There's one where there's a living room shot or something. And
Oh, right.
It's Chris, and then there's a guy that looks like Ed, but it's not Ed, in a hat, and he's holding up his newer destroyer when it's natural.
Oh, I didn't take that one. Yeah, I don't know
But
what that is.
in the background, there's these white with black Marshall cabs and heads, and I've never. Everybody says no, they were stripped, but
He had stripped. He had, I think, two stacks that were stripped down to the wood.
right.
But I did see him with one of the Marshall heads that was white at this one party outdoors, which was funny because they were playing this party outdoors, and sometimes I'd do the sound for Roger and Don and Chris before they got, when they were still in that band.
Mhm.
And the guy, I think it was the neighbor, came up to him and said, "You got to turn it down." And Chris goes, "You fucking turn it down." So he goes up to the amp, and Chris had taken out the volume controls. So he wired it straight. So when you turned it on with the Variac, it was fully on.
Oh, got you good.
100%. "You fucking turn it down." It was so funny. I just never forget the guy going,
Well, the reason I ask is because a friend of mine thinks he has that head, and he had talked to Chris in the last year or two. And
oh,
I played through this thing at his house out there in I forget what the town was outside of Pasadena. I'll think of it in a minute. But anyway, it's the right era, it's the right thing, and Chris apparently thinks it might be the one. Inside the head, though, it's signed by Ed in the inside of the cabinet. But
weird.
it looks like it's more of a early 80s signature of his, and it's weird. Somebody said that it was sold and then that's when it got moved around. I don't know.
I think I have a couple of pictures of one or two of Chris I could send you.
Okay.
He's standing behind, as we're setting up the thing, and he's standing behind. You see his head, but then these three heads and then four bottom.
I saw that picture.
Oh, okay.
I was looking on your thing. Yeah. I saw that, and those are really cool pictures, and those look like white heads to me. I don't know if those are white, but they look white.
I think there was one white head, one white Tolex head, but I think the other two were. But I'd have to look it again.
Yeah, well, it would be a rare thing to have a colored head. Even back then, good. That would have been strange, right?
The weirdest thing is I had this Marshall Major stack, 200-watt stack.
Yeah.
It was the greatest. I mean, I never had a 200-watt head like that, and it was so clean. But you could put a pedal in front of it, and it just sang. But again, the guitar player I used to play with back east took it and sold it from under me after we graduated out of school.
Oh man,
Same weekend, the 100-watt head got ripped off. It's like, oh, really? It's a bargain weekend.
that's crazy, man.
Oh, it was the best amp.
Right. I had one that ended up getting sold to Peter Frampton. It was I don't think it was a major, but it was an old 70s head, man, and it was just insane. I mean, how clean it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But it was 100-watt, not a 200
Yeah.
watt.
I don't think it was a two. I have to look at that because it's been a while.
200
But
watt is as thick as the bottom
is it?
flat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. No,
I
I
mean,
guess
it's heavy. It's like, I mean,
you know
it's got the KT88s in there. It's like unbelievably heavy.
that makes sense. So the cabinets, there's also this rumor for years and years about, and this I don't know that back in the day when you guys were with him that he used those EVs. I think they're EVs, right? But
I think it's JBLs.
maybe I'm sorry, Jay. I always say that.
EVs. I bought these two Ampeg cabinets early in my career. From the recycler. You know, you look at the paper and you go out, and I bought them from John Kay of Steppenwolf.
Okay.
I answer the door, and here's John Kay. I go,
Wow.
and it came with anvil cases with the Steppenwolf head on there, big, thing. But they were just, it didn't sound good.
Are you talking about JBLs or EVs?
No, EVs, the EV12s.
Okay.
They
Yeah.
just didn't sound good. And they were just too loud. You couldn't get them to break up well.
And the JBLs, now that's what I meant. There have been people that have told me locally that they were not JBLs, they're Radio Shack speakers, which I just saw someone say this, that Eminence made a silver dome speaker that they enjoyed. I forget who that was, but it was
I don't remember an Eminence speaker with a silver dome. But I do remember when Ed used the H&H power amps, you know how he'd have the Marshall amps, and then he would take lines out into the H&H and run those. Now, I didn't see the cabinets myself, but I saw the pictures from the front with those silver domes, and I assumed they were JBLs.
right,
and that would be great if the amp was sending out the right distorted sound. Otherwise, it would just be burn your ears off.
right, because of their
They're just so clean in volume. Yeah, the volume just blow you out.
Rip your head off. Yeah, because people always say that about that first album, that's where it came, that kind of different sound came from the first album. But you saw it live. So when you heard this live, did you feel like you were hearing on that first record what you heard in person?
Yeah.
So you did.
Oh, yeah. I heard it at that biker bar in Van Nuys. That sound was it was so perfect. And that was the sound he had. And again, I'm not talking about EVs. I'm talking about Altic Lansing. That's what I had. Altic Lansing 12s, and they sucked. The EV 12s were much better than those.
Okay. So the sound you heard in the early 77, you would probably, right?
Yeah, and that was the greenback Celestians for Ed.
Yeah, because
you
see that one picture of him in the studio that Greg Renoff put out there with came from Don Landy. You see one slant cabinet, but nobody ever could see the other speakers in the box. So they, but Ed, we know he preferred the Celestians. He's always said that, and so that's what you're pretty sure was recorded, right?
Yeah, and Chris Holmes always had those too. He always had greenbacks. He didn't like the vintage 30s. When they finally came out, and they were right. They just went together, the Marshall and those 25 greenbacks.
Right, because Chris would say, like, I think some of these interviews, maybe in Mean Man or whatever, what I watched, that they would, he would kind of pick up a lot of things from Ed, like you were talking about, on his sound, and Ed would share with him the truth.
They were close. Yeah, they were close. They had a good thing, Ed and Chris.
That's so cool, man. It's so cool to hear these stories. So the Starwood, you went there, I guess, as well.
My band played there. My friends' bands played there. You went to see, you waited until Aerosmith would always, when they played the Forum, they would always do this like disguised gig at the Starwood where they would just invent this name, let you know later the same day that the word would get out that they're going to play at the Starwood. And so we all would pile in, and then Aerosmith would play at the Starwood and just kill it. It was the best time. It was the best time, yeah. But yeah, that was the place we'd go the most.
Okay. Yeah, because I've gone to the location actually where it was and vlogged that.
Burned down. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you didn't do Gazzari's very much or the whiskey.
We go to the whiskey, but
Yeah.
again, we didn't play there as much. It was
Okay.
a much longer line to get in. But once you got into the Starwood or the Troubadour, once you got into the sort of the bench, then they knew who you were. But you had to go audition or bring an audio tape to the Troupe when you first went down there, and they say, nah, or they'd say, yeah, it starts Sunday night, and we'll see what to do from them.
Same as today. Exactly.
Oh no, pay to play today.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough right out there. I kind of sometimes I feel like I'm pretty lucky where I am because I actually still can get paid.
Yeah, that ruined it really.
Yeah, that's
It's
crazy.
like Greg Leon. I remember his band was getting like $1,500 a night to play the Starwood when at the height because. But if you started out on Sunday night or something at the Starwood or the Monday night, you'd get like $300 for the whole
Right.
band.
Right. Yeah,
But
still
that made sure that when you went there on the weekend, you got the best musicians that whoever was booking the Starwood thought was around because they're paying them.
right.
Sense.
Right, absolutely. It's crazy. So I don't think we really covered this. We talked about it offline, but La Cañada, talk about that area because I've not been there and I want to know more about La Cañada. It's just north of Pasadena, right?
It's northwest, yeah, and it goes Pasadena, then the JPL is right there, and then La Cañada is the next one over. La Cañada is more of a sleepier bedroom town. It doesn't have a whole lot of clubs or anything. It's more of a kind of a wealthier, nice little community, good schools, um, that kind of thing.
So Chris and you grew up in La Cañada.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, because it's always funny because Chris's mom was of course, in that documentary years ago. It's such a crazy scene, right?
she was a piece of work, man.
Huh? She was?
She was a piece of work.
He like you said, he's really jumped back on the scene and really out there playing a lot again and doing well. And
He is. He's done a great job after he got screwed out of his publishing rights from Blackie.
right from the Wasp.
That whole thing.
Yeah, I did watch that documentary and it goes into a lot of the details on that. And yeah, that's rock and roll, man. It's it's gut wrenching and brutal. And you played your whole life. Are you still playing or what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I still got 15 guitars
There you go.
in that closet and show and tell.
Yeah, let's see it.
I don't know if you've ever seen one of these before.
Let's see what you got.
This is my great grandfather's
Whoa. Wow.
1895 Washburn.
Wow. Washburn?
Yeah.
1895, huh?
Check I don't know if you can see the inlay on the ivory tuning pegs.
Yeah, that's inlay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
And this was the first guitar. It's got a cool back to it too.
Right. Beautiful.
It was the first guitar that could play either nylon or steel strings because of the way it was supported in the bridge.
Now is that the guitar you would tell me about that it was around the house or?
No. This wasn't around the house. The clunker was some old. I don't even know what it was. My dad had.
Okay.
I guess my dad had taken guitar lessons for 20 minutes one year.
Was it acoustic or electric? This guitar.
Acoustic.
Okay.
Acoustic.
Yeah, it's like same thing happened to me. It just happened that I had a guitar laying around about the time I saw Edward, and I just for the first period I just got my hands on it. I just started to spend time with it, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I just kind of was like, just thinking about it, and trying to get it in my head. And I tell you, man, the moving thing you were talking about him moving.
Yeah.
This becomes, that's a great story because it opens up a lot of that transmission of his personality that I don't know that you were saying back in the day. He didn't transmit; he just played.
Yeah, that's right. He animated more of who he was as a musician in the way that he moved and expressed himself in his body and his face. And I mean, he would really enjoy himself.
Yeah, that's what took me when I saw him on Don Kirshner's rock concert. If you remember that show,
I don't.
you don't remember Don Kirshner's rock or like
I
Midnight?
mean, I remember the show, but I don't remember seeing him on there.
Okay. Well, they had the videos from 1981 on there, the Unchained video.
Oh, okay.
And I saw that. And what's weird about that is, that inspired me because I was like, oh my God, whatever this is, I want to do this. Because I knew about Kiss, but it didn't hit me like Van Halen. I was like,
No, Kiss.
I didn't see that as a thing for me.
Yeah.
And I saw the guitar and Eddie, and I heard that. And I was like, oh my God. So that became the impetus of that. But when Alex wrote his book just recently, he said him and his dad and Edward would watch the same show that I watched. Don Kirshner's rock concert.
Yeah.
And they would sit around and watch it. I had no idea, but that's it's so cool how things come full circle. It's an amazing thing. Man, I appreciate you coming on here and spending time with me today, talking about stories and everything. And I wish you the best with your move and
Thank you.
Where you going to move to? Are you still in town or?
We have a rental down here in Lake Forest, is Irvine, just for, until we get, sell our house, and we're still dealing with the fixing it up, getting it ready to sell. So it's been the whole year worth of like hell. But, once we do that, we're going to take our time and then decide where we're going to probably be up near Pasadena, though, near LA, because that's where all our community is.
Cool. Well, I'm glad to talk to you. And
yeah, glad to talk to you.
It's an amazing thing sometimes. I read all your posts over the years when you'd post about Edward, and as his his death day had come back around every year, and birth date and everything, we would see your photos and your sharing of all that detail and all those times with your band Panzer and all the other things that happened in that community, because it's cool, like the history that I've been looking at it. I've just gotten to know this town and the people around it, and it's such a cool history and amazing.
I've ended up being the archivist for a lot of my friends' bands. I was pulling out of our studio. We had to take all of our stuff out of our house and throw most of it away, but I have all these reel-to-reel tapes and photos and stuff that I'm going to digitize from that time. So I'll let you know when I get that out and send you a bunch of it, because you're kind of the archivist too. So
I am. That's the thing, is I've got this Instagram too, where I collect as many photos of older photos, anything that I've never seen, and I share them across that.
Good.
And it's it's extremely popular because people really want to see the deeper cuts, as I would call it in the history, the deeper cuts of history. And that's really, Greg Renoff was one of the people that I did an early interview with, and he got me really hooked on that whole community. And
there's a lot of good people along the way that really got the spirit of it. And even if some of the bands didn't make it, like the reason our Panzer broke up is because Satyr. Do you ever remember the band Satyr? Satyr. They bought our singer off of us.
Oh God!
I mean, not off of us. They just took him and paid him money because we didn't have any money. Right. We were just scraping by, and there's they were well backed, but again, they didn't get a big record contract either. So there's all these bands. I thought it'd be a great thing to have like a video YouTube channel of like someone collecting all these demo tapes that never made it, and selecting great pieces that never made it and playing them.
Right.
And then people could hear like, wow, there were some other great people playing really good stuff that did, for every Van Halen, there's 2 billion other people who didn't get it, but they weren't, at that level. But
yeah, I interviewed Tracy G, him?
Yeah. Tracy. I've heard of him.
Yeah, Tracy was around for, I think, the Mount Baldy show up there, and
Mount Baldy show.
You know about that?
Well, some of my friends played up there, and you had to take your equipment up on the ski lift.
Oh God!
You're carrying the amps on the ski lift and the guitars, and my friend borrowed a bass amp. And he was playing up there, and it fell.
Ooh!
It was like 800 feet.
Wow. So
sorry, we don't have a bass amp for tonight. I mean, it was really funny.
Wow, because I've seen pictures of this place. It's pretty kind of like a small little lodge kind of
It was
vibe.
a small little lodge at the top of the ski mountain. It was just a dive, but dives were the best to play for me. I always
Yeah.
loved playing them.
That's funny because I've read about that place and seen, he talked about seeing them there, and I think it was one of their last gigs before they got signed, I think. But yeah, it's so crazy. Thank you so much again for
All
your
right.
time, and hopefully one day we can maybe connect out there when I'm out there. I'm always out there
Yeah,
in
I'm
January.
gonna be going to Nam with Chris, I think. So if you're at Nam,
I was going to be at NAMM this year. Chris is
yeah, yeah, yes, it's got some
perfect.
things.
Well, let's
So
let's connect, and maybe we can go get some dinner at my favorite place in Pasadena, which is well, either the boat.
I don't know if the boat's still there. Is it still there?
Yeah, it's still there. Yeah. What was it? The name of that?
Yeah, it's the North Woods. Is the other.
Northwoods.
Yeah.
Northwoods. Yes. Yeah.
All right, buddy.
That's where Kilgore and I went to eat last time I was there. So maybe we can all go.
All right. Take
All right.
care.
See you, buddy.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Thank you.
You bet.
Bye
Keep in
bye.
touch.